Journalist E. Jean Carroll has come to be known as the woman who successfully sued Donald Trump not once, but twice. Now she has written a book in secret called Not My Type, something Donald Trump said about her after she accused him of raping her in a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman in 1996. Now she's here to talk about that and so much more. I wanted to start by asking you just a basic question, E. Jean Carroll. How would you describe your life right now?
Well, it's fabulous. I'm sitting across from you. It is wonderful. I love being old. I love being smart and having my experience that I've gotten all these years. I can remember seeing you, Katie. I was at America's Talking, which became MSNBC. I was
run by Roger Ailes.
You walked in to America's Talking with Roger Ailes, and you came through this where all the desks were. You were that young, vibrant, your little short haircut. You walked in, and here's my vision. You had a special light shining down on your head as you came in and walked through all the people that work for NBC. We all just gazed at you because your energy, your vibe, we had not seen. This is just when you took over. Yeah, you were the anchor of the Today Show. And you walked in, it was just this bouncy energy, and the lights were coming off your head, and your eyes were like beaming out. And I thought, wow. I mean, just wow. And Roger said, address the room. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember this.
He said, do you see this? This is what we want. Do you remember that? Do you remember coming to MSNBC?
I do. Okay. And I remember actually enjoying Roger Ailes at one point in my life before he went to the dark side.
He was a great broadcaster.
He was, and kind of a fun, charming fellow.
Very. But I didn't know about the dark side. Did you know? No,
of course not. And I think it was the dark side, in his behavior and also in shaping what Fox News ultimately became. But yes. Anyway, enough about Roger Ailes, but thank you for that sweet compliment. And I need to do more interviews with you, E. Jean.
I'll never forget it.
Let's talk about this book because it's fascinating on so many levels. It is called Not My Type for a reason, something that Donald Trump said repeatedly about you, but Not My Type, one woman versus a president. Now, nobody knew this book existed until a couple of days ago, and you kept it under lock and key, and you yourself didn't physically hold this book till, I guess, a week ago or something?
No, 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
No, 3 days now.
You communicated with your publisher using Signal. Why did you decide to write this book, but why did you want to keep it a secret?
Well, Katie, if you had been in on the goings on behind the scenes of the two trials and seen what was going on, it was so funny and so absurd and so out of this world. I could not help myself. I had to write it down as I was in the middle of this high comedy with, oh my God, Shakespeare could not have created the characters that were surrounding me. So there was no way. I'm an old journalist. As the New York Times today in their review, A. Rave, said that I was old-time journalist. As I said, I'm so old, I'd never seen anything like it in my entire life. I had to get it down. I had to write the book.
And you wrote your own story from the vantage point of a reporter. So yeah. you were basically reporting on your whole life with such keen and hilarious observations.
Thank
And the book is so funny. So
Thank
obviously that's why you had to write
Wait,
it.
Katie, let me ask you something. There's a controversy now. Some people think that I should not say funny. They don't like the word funny
Why?
in connection
Because
with
it's
Donald Trump. They just don't want to prick his tiny little hot air balloon. They do not like the word funny. They think that we're making light of what the two trials were about, which we are not doing. We are allowed, though.
I
We
think
are
you're pointing
allowed.
out the absurdity, and
Yeah.
there is
Yes.
hilarity in the absurdity.
Yes, and the lunacy.
But why I still don't quite understand the secretive nature of the process, and why I understand why you had to write about it. It was just too juicy and bizarre. But
Exactly.
why did you have to keep it top
Exactly
secret?
Juicy and bizarre is exactly it. Why did we have to keep it a secret? We didn't want the White House to hear about it.
What would have happened if they had?
Who knows? Who can say what, who knows from one instant to the next what the White House is going to do about anything?
And it seems keeping with the whole tone of the book to have it drop without anyone expecting it, right?
Exactly.
I also love the blurbs on the back of the book. Sorry, everyone, I gotta grab this. I forgot that I was going to do this. I love the blurbs on the back. E. Jean Carroll is the bravest person I've ever known. That's a tweet by Mary Trump, moments before the verdict. God bless E. Jean Carroll, brilliant and beautiful, avenging angel and queen of Manhattan. That's Emily Nussbaum, the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer from The New Yorker, moments after the verdict. The chutzpah required in the face of a culture that most certainly doesn't look kindly on women her age to still insist she was worth something. It was ballsy. Jessica Bennett, The New York Times. After this victory, there should be a law. E. Jean should never pay for lunch in any restaurant in any town in America. Jamie Lee Curtis picking up the tab at the Polo Lounge.
Good old Jamie Lee.
And the final quote is, I don't know who she is. Donald Trump from the defense table, just loud enough for the jury to hear. I mean, if those are not the best blurbs of a book I've ever read. I think it also indicates kind of the tone of the book as well.
Well, I could overhear Trump saying that repeatedly, Katie, repeatedly throughout the trial. He was so close to me. If I turned around and reached, I could grab him by his silly little Sandra D hair. Here's the thing.
Does anybody know who Sandra D is, by the way?
Let's say Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
Well, does anybody
No,
know?
I mean, I like the Sandra D reference. Sadly, there are a lot of people, but look, Google her.
So, and I thought, not only could I hear him, I could feel him. He was flopping his arms, and he was sort of spitting and hissing. And
he was
moaning.
also at times falling asleep, wasn't he?
I was turned this way, so I cannot say for certain, although the space between us was about the size of a mattress, but I can't say if he's fell asleep. I don't know.
Let's go back to the summer of 2019, E. Jean, when you decided to sue Donald Trump. In June, an excerpt from your upcoming book, What Do We Need Men For? A Modest Proposal, ran in New York Magazine, where you came forward saying Donald Trump had raped you in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in 1996. In July, though, you're at a party the next month, and George Conway says to you...
Yeah, he was standing in a corner, and we're at a Molly Jong fast party, and I was very bold. I noticed he was standing not too far away from me, so I went over just to say, George, how do you do? I'm E. Jean Carroll. Thank you for writing that nice thing in the Washington Post. He had written a nice thing about me coming forward. And he said, thank you very much. And he said, you can sue Donald Trump. Now, George disagrees with this version. He said that I said, George, can I sue Donald Trump? And I remember that he said, Eugene, you can sue Donald Trump. And that was that was the first time it really became a serious consideration for
And this
me.
was for defamation.
This is for defamation because George played a key role when Paula Jones accused Bill Clinton of defamation, and George won that suit, as we remember. So I took it seriously, but the main thing he said, which made all the difference in the world, is he said, maybe I can recommend someone for you. Now, how often do you hear that at a cocktail party? I'll email you with a recommendation. You always go, and you never hear from these people. They always promise they're going to give you this or that or an email. Next morning at 8:45, I got an email and it said, introductory email on it. And there it was, Robbie Kaplan. Merely the greatest civil rights attorney in America. And so that was it. I met Robbie, and Robbie is the one, Robbie was the beating heart of this case.
She had you at, let's sue his ass.
That's it. Yeah. That's what she had.
And you, in fact, dedicate this book to Robbie Kaplan, who is known as this larger-than-life litigator, strong but small, about, as you write, about the height of an Olsen twin.
Yeah.
You write that she confronted the white supremacists, the Proud Boys, the neo-Nazis, the white nationalists,
Yep.
the loyal white knights of the
Yep,
Ku Klux
there's-
Klan,
that's Robbie.
and far-right extremists every day in federal court for 4 weeks in the famous Charlottesville trial. That's just one of her cases, one of
Right.
her many cases. But tell us about your relationship with her and why you all instantly bonded. Because she's also a bit controversial, isn't she? She left her firm
Yeah.
because people said she was sort of kind of a jerk to some of her fellow
Untrue.
workers.
Untrue. Robbie was born with a lust for battle. She cannot stand people being treated unequally.
She can't stand bullies.
Hates bullies. Right now she's representing the MTA against Donald Trump in his what is it called? What is the pricing? The congestion price.
Oh, yes.
Okay, she's fighting Trump on that too. It is. She's just. She's a hell of a great time. She's very funny. She's a great mother. She has a great wife, and she's an Ohio girl, and from Shaker Heights, and she's been the first to do a lot of things. The first woman to address a law school graduation class. She's the one who opened up the gates for gay rights in America. That's Robbie Kaplan. So yeah, and I like palling around with her. And she is probably a once-in-a-generation legal mind. She foresaw, for instance, when let me see if I'm exaggerating. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit. But the day we sued Donald Trump, Robbie Kaplan said he will end up taking this to the Supreme Court. And yesterday, the Trump lawyers told our side that they're appealing this to the Supreme Court when they lost for the second time in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals.
Well, I want to get into all of that, but one thing, Eugene, of course, I know you're hilarious and such a great descriptive writer. I loved
Thank
your
you.
writing in this book. But did you know this book was going to be so funny when you set out to write it?
Behind the scenes, I could not believe what was going on. For instance, right before the first trial, just several days before, I find out I have a wad of cancer above my eye.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The description of that made me...
Yeah, it's not good. So the doctor sits me down, never a good sign. When the doctor says, sit down, you never want to hear that. So I sit down. He said, we have to have surgery and remove this. And I said, what about the scar? And he said, well, should be minimal. We'll work on it, but it should be. I said, no, we've got a trial against Donald Trump. And the doctor said, well, I think we can really minimize the scar. I said, no, I want the scar. I want to look like a pirate. I want to look, So, tiny little things like that, just getting ready, the depositions,
The strange confluence of
yeah,
events, right?
yes, yes,
So you have the skin cancer removed,
yeah.
and the descriptions are so evocative. You write about Donald Trump's defense lawyer, Alina Habba
Oh, please,
Esquire.
now we got to have to, she's now the current acting Attorney General of New Jersey. She is Alina Habba Esquire, ladies and gentlemen, Alina Habba Esquire. She is one of the most beautiful women, very beautiful. Eyes like a baby seal, dark.
You say dark with a broad forehead, cheekbones like pickleball paddles, wide set eyes as lovely as a baby seal's.
There you go. And she wears a diamond as big as a Ritz cracker. That woman can dress. Here's the thing.
Her green Chanel jacket.
Yes.
More something than Granny Smith, you said.
Yeah, more emerald than Granny Smith.
Yeah.
So she is extremely intelligent. She has a beautiful voice, and she is deliciously arrogant. She didn't know diddly squat about the law, didn't know how to introduce a document. The judge says to her in break, Miss Kaplan has just introduced 56 documents in court. You'd think you could take a break and learn how to do it. She comes back from break, and she introduces her first document. And boy, she strutted around that courtroom like who's the basketball player?
Steph Curry?
Yes, like Steph Curry, walking around the court line because she's introduced a document. Oh my God. She was a great defense lawyer for Trump. Not so much in the courtroom, but out of the courtroom. She was excellent. She was vice president of his MAGA PAC, and Trump ended up being elected. So she has her powers.
Let's talk about the trial. Was it difficult to review? It is funny because...
Have you ever been in a courtroom?
Not as a defendant. I mean, as a reporter. Yes, as a reporter.
So you understand how solemn it is.
Yes.
And that you understand, how strange it is. And have you ever been in a federal courtroom?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Judge Lewis Kaplan was a judge here. And his courtroom...
No relation, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad you pointed that out. No, really. His courtroom had a runway. And the famous people who have walked up and down his run... It's better than a runway in any fashion, because New York is famous for its fashion. So just watch it, the people coming down the runway for trial in their fashions, the reporters all with, the soup on their ties, the witnesses all gotten up. My sister had drawn on her eyebrows in a weird, that part was wonderful.
Very Tom Wolfe.
Very Tom Wolfe, yes.
But, I think it is true when you were saying some people were struggling with this idea of this book being funny. It was about very serious stuff that was very traumatizing for you personally, and writing about that. Was that difficult for you, Eugene, because you had to relive some of this stuff? And I think people don't actually appreciate, with all the sensational coverage, with perhaps, your larger than life sense of humor and just the whole New York scene of it all, that this was about you in 1996 undergoing something that was traumatic and life-changing. And so was it hard writing about it on some level, in spite of the humor that's infused in almost every word of the book?
It was therapy. It was a release for me to write about it. And I had the court transcripts. We had scene after scene. It was a play, all laid out. Everything was there. Every step of what happened from the moment Donald Trump and I met in front of Bergdorf's to the conclusion, every instant was torn apart to shreds by Joe Takapina in court. And my reaction is, did I scream? Did I not scream?
Donald Trump's defense attorney.
Yeah, Donald. Oh, thank you. So it was not traumatizing. It was releasing for me to see, to have the words facts written down so I could just see it, and then I could just, I don't know, it was releasing for me. It was, I felt so much better after I wrote the book.
Really?
Yeah, because, he's rewriting history every day. And here I had the transcripts, I'm writing the facts. So it felt really good. It felt really good. So, yeah.
Tell us about the impact, though, on you personally, this crime that was committed in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman. I always have a hard time saying that name. It changed your life.
Yeah, there's a cost. There's a cost. There's a cost when the event happens, and then there's a cost if you decide to come forward and tell people. There's a cost. And I've paid the price. I paid for it. But I'm glad. I can take it. I can take it. I'm glad I did. I mean, it took the plot. Okay, here's the plot of the play. There's a kid who grows up in the sticks of Indiana. She becomes a beauty queen.
A cheerleader.
And cheerleaders together, girl. Cheerleaders together. A cheerleader and a journalist runs into Donald Trump at Bergdorf's, then is so frightened about what happened, she doesn't say a word. And then at the age of 75, she finds her voice. And at the 80, she goes to trial and beats him twice. So, yes, there was a price. There was a cost. But there was that enormous uplift at the end, which made it all worth it.
You couldn't have a relationship with a man after that. And that part made me so sad, Eugene. That the guilt, the self-blame,
totally,
the inability to form a connection and to trust ever again. It ended that day.
And I can't get over it. And I've had it explained to me. I've had it explained over and over and over. And
you just shut down. You describe it as when the shops in New York City pull down that steel grate at the end of the day, and you feel like that you have a version of that in your own sort of psyche.
Katie, I recognize it, and I can't get over it. Dr. Leslie Leibowitz, who was the great trauma expert in the country, she created the sexual assault protocol for the U.S. Air Force. She has given me steps. I am to get in an elevator, and when I see an attractive man, I am to look him in the eye and smile. I can't do it. I can't force. I can't do it. And I know, I did once because she made me do it and report to her the next morning. But now that I don't have to report to her and shouldn't, I can't do it.
And that makes you as sad as it makes me.
I'm giving up. Just like after you and I have this great. I could go have lunch with my lover and tell him all about, I got to see Katie Couric, and she was wearing this really see-through dress. And this
is it see-through?
No. She's dynamite, and I could tell him all about that. And then we'd go make love, right? But that's not going to happen. So that's the price.
That's the price of what happened. What is the price of coming forward?
Well, it's life-changing, because people didn't know I existed before, and the people who do know I exist now hate me. So there's that price.
Don't a lot of people respect and appreciate you too, though?
Oh, that's the good part. That's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The book, I love the attention to detail.
Thank you.
Because you clearly, when somebody recognizes everything around them that is happening, whether it's Robbie Kaplan's expression when you talk about the number of lovers you had, 8 in total.
She was stunned.
Ben Vereen.
And then she said, Ben Vereen! That was the first star she ever saw in her first Broadway show.
Pippin, right? Yeah. And but all the expressions, the things that happened, and one thing was your dress and what you were supposed to wear and what you were supposed to project. I mean, it was like clothes as armor, clothes as a protection, but also as a messenger, right?
Totally.
Clothes as symbolism.
Totally.
Right? And talk about that. And it made me think of the Gwyneth Paltrow trial, where everybody was very obsessed with what she was wearing and what those outfits were saying. But in your case, it becomes sort of a central focus of some of these trials, or at least initially. So talk about that, E. Jean.
Any sexual assault trial centers on the body of the woman, and what you put on that body is, as you say, the message. So we had a problem. I'm an old lady sitting in the courtroom. I'm 80 years old. The jury is going to have a difficult time finding me fuckable. That's what the jury's going to have a hard. And so, if they can't see any attraction about me, they're not going to believe that Donald Trump is going to be attracted enough to assault me. So what we did is, we did a trick. I had a little talk show, a live talk show, on America's Talking, which became MSNBC. And every day, I had my hair cut and my makeup done, every single day. And that was in 1996. So what we did for trial is we did the exact haircut, the exact color of blonde, the exact makeup. And I still, as you do, I'm sure, still have some of our clothes from 1996 because they were classics. And I wore this right here. Oh, I wrote a book. See that? I got that in Bergdorf's in 1993.
The turtleneck or the jacket?
The brown military jacket, Bergdorf's 1993. So we even dressed in clothing from 1996. And I didn't look, obviously, like I looked in 1996, but I looked like somebody who could have looked like I looked in 96. And the jury found him liable.
It's interesting because I know early on you kept saying, should I bob my hair, right? Yeah. And then they did a test jury, which I had never heard of. And the test jury came back and none of them believed you and none of them thought that you were, to use your phrase, fuckable. And the lawyer said, bob your hair, color your hair. And you write, a jury can't picture me. They simply can't imagine me in 1996. So we got to give them an idea, a hint, a vibe, a shadow of that younger E. Jean in the dressing room so they can connect her to the older E. Jean in the courtroom. And no, I do not look like I looked in 1996, but I look like somebody who could have once looked like I looked in 1996.
And it worked. Well, every woman who's watching this, and you have a lot of women who watch this, knows exactly how clothing and makeup and hair affects how we feel about ourselves and how we present ourselves. We all have that feeling.
Your clothing was considered a little too, what is the word, highbrow or inaccessible or, expensive, to be honest. And they had a consultant come, and suddenly Armani items were being replaced by Zara clothes, right?
Cool, Zara.
But you still wore your Armani outfits, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what were you trying to project in that courtroom?
A cross between Amelia Earhart and Rosa Parks.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? Explain that.
There you go. That's what we were trying to project. We were just trying. They needed to calm me down and present an image. They did not want me to yammer, because I love to tell a story, as you know. And the jury would have been bored out of their gourd. The jury does not want their time wasted. They have kids at home, dinners to fix, and everything. And they just, they don't want to. They just want the facts. So they had to. It took.
They had to really.
Yeah.
What is the word? They had to manage your appearance. And manage you.
Oh, you have no idea, Katie. They really, and they're just the smartest lawyers that have ever walked or crawled the earth. They finally convinced me, because I had no idea what I was doing, and I wore flight suits every day. I'm wearing a flight suit now.
It's great looking, by the way.
They take one look at those flight suits. No, you're not wearing those in court. No.
Tell us the significance of the white Armani jacket, because I had to laugh. My first day on the CBS Evening News, I wore a winter white Armani jacket. I was so proud, because unlike you, I don't really buy a lot of designer clothes. Why was that white Armani jacket so meaningful for you?
Because I was wearing it when the New York Times awarded me, for some wonderful reason, that I was one of the best, most stylish people of 2023. And then I was wearing it again when the next year, on the second trial, the jury found Trump liable for $83.3 million.
Never get rid of that white Armani jacket.
You want to borrow it?
I don't know. Good things happen when you're wearing that jacket.
Well, do you still have the white Armani?
I don't.
What?
I kept it for a long time, and then I think I don't know what I did with that. Did I sell it for charity?
Oh.
I think I sold it for charity for cancer research, and I sold a lot of my things.
Good.
Yeah.
You and Princess Diana. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, no, that's good.
People often think of us in the same
They do.
sense.
I always do.
Yeah. Let's talk about the lawyer who also, just for Donald Trump, the aforementioned Takapina, Joe Takapina. You write about him saying, if, for instance, you bludgeon a college girl with a cinder block and don't know who to call, Takapina is your man.
Right.
His 2-day cross-examination was painful, though, to read, e.g., he said, the evidence will show you that E. Jean Carroll is abusing the system by advancing a false claim of rape for money, for political reasons and for status. And in doing so, she's really minimizing true rape victims, real rape victims. She's exploiting their pain and their suffering. She's capitalizing on their stories. The evidence is going to show you this loud and clear. How challenging was that to listen to him say that?
Well, that's unusual that I heard Katie Couric. Your voice is known around the world, so your voice is a very beautiful, feminine voice. You have a very powerful voice. Now picture those words coming out of a man who has shoulders like this and a waist like this, with a voice like a shotgun. It's his opening argument. It's his opening argument. And he's saying his voice fills the courtroom. It goes to the rafters and out to the sides. It's a loud, positive, vibrations. And it was so horrible. What I did was, I'm sitting here, Joe Takapina is delivering the opening argument to the jury behind me, and I turned around in my chair, Katie, and I just watched him give it, eye to eye, eye to eye. If a man is going to rip me to shreds, I'm not going to have my back turned. Though my lawyer said, during opening arguments, Gene, you just stay face forward, you could care less, you don't care a word what he's saying, forget it. I couldn't stand it. Wouldn't you turn around?
Oh, yeah.
You'd just look at the guy like, what the hell are you talking about? He's just made up this whole story. So, no, I was not facing front. I was not being nonchalant. I was not going, oh, ho, ho. You should have seen my lawyers. They're like, writing Post-its, and they're like, chewing on their halls mentholatum, whatever.
Eucalyptus, I think.
Yeah, just really.
Or methyl, but I know what you mean.
I couldn't stand it. I turned. I watched him.
Did you know all this time you were going to write a book about this?
I always think I'm going to write a book about everything. But at the end of, during the last 2 years, during the 2 trials, I did, at the end of every evening, make a video voice memo. So I had every detail, because I would have forgotten the little things.
Of course.
So it was all there. It was all there.
In addition to being such a funny writer, laughter plays a big role in the book, as we've talked, because you say you laughed when Trump forced himself upon you. There was much made about this reaction.
Yeah.
I think this is a very common thing for people to criticize how women respond. Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you run out of the room? During the trial, though, Twitter was filled with stories by women who explained why they did not scream. That must have been very validating for you.
It was hard.
Even though at this point in time, I would hope that people would recognize that there is no appropriate reaction.
Those stories, Katie, I'll never forget them. There was the hashtag, I didn't scream either, I didn't scream. One woman told the story when she was 17, coming home with the head of the children's camp. His wife and children were in the back of the bus, and he raped her in the front seat. She didn't scream. Those are the kind of stories that were coming. I mean, it would just rip your heart out of your chest reading this. Some women scream. Some women don't scream. The whole thing with the trial of Joe Takapina and Alina Habba's defense was that there was a perfect victim. There's a perfect assault victim. She doesn't scream. She always calls the police. After it happens, she never smiles again. She never goes to a party. Maybe she doesn't even go to work, but if she goes to work, she'll go right home. She's sedate, she's sad. She lives in her little cave covered with her. That was what they were presenting. It was astonishing.
You would think these tropes would have been obliterated long ago.
If they knew how, I would imagine several people in the courtroom had been assaulted. I would imagine, almost every woman in the courtroom who was over the age of 40 certainly would have been assaulted in some way. So I don't know what kind of world they're living in. I have no idea. It was astonishing.
You got to know Anita Hill during the course of this.
A A little bit.
experience a little bit. I know that you spoke after everything was over. Do you maintain a relationship with Anita? I covered, obviously, that extraordinary story of her courage to come forward.
You were around in 1990. That's right.
Yes, I went to Capitol Hill. I
Yeah.
covered the hearing, the pubic hair on the Coke can stuff, and the Joe Biden complicity, sadly, during the hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was wild. It was the first time, I think, people understood how pernicious sexual harassment was. Tell me about your conversation with Anita Hill.
Within the first 30 seconds, I burst into tears just seeing her face. It's just tears rolled down my face as I looked at her. It was very moving. In other words, I could see her for what she did, and I couldn't see what I had done. You know what I mean? So it was very moving for me.
Did she make you feel better about what you had done?
Yes. She's got magic words. She's wonderful. But it completely fucked up her life coming forward. She was on a trajectory to be, sit on the Supreme Court. And it just upended everything for her. Everything. And yet, she's a valiant one.
She doesn't regret it, does she?
I never asked her. I'm not Katie Couric, for God's sakes. Jesus.
Well, that brings me to ask you, at any moment, did you regret it?
Yeah, about 1,000 times a day. Yeah. During the trials, yeah, I regretted it all the time. But I was glad I did it, really.
And now, do you regret it at all?
No, I'm glad I did it.
I'm curious about the environment we're in now, even versus a few years ago. I thought it was so interesting, Robbie Kaplan's comments to you before they made you cut your hair and kind of gave you a makeover after that test trial where the jurors did not believe you. We're not buying what you were selling.
I know.
She says to you, we were idiots. We live in a liberal bubble. We live in a world which believes in equality for women, for all women. So we put on a powerful case for all women. But trying a case for all women caused us to lose jury members, Eugene. I never want to hear you say, this is a case for all women again. This case is for you. The juries don't care about Me Too. They don't care.
They don't care.
They care about one woman and one man in a dressing room. Were you surprised even back then that the Me Too movement hadn't really impacted the average person?
Katie Couric is asking me this. You've weathered storms like this several times in your life. Are you surprised that it just keeps on going? The storm keeps rolling? I mean...
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, I am.
I wanted to get your reaction to the ABC, some would say capitulation, the ABC News capitulation, to settle the defamation suit because George Stephanopoulos had used the term rape instead of sexual abuse. What did you think of that?
Weak. Spineless. I mean, they're crawling. It's just crawling to Donald Trump. Why would they crawl to Donald Trump? I mean, Stephanopoulos was brave enough to do what he said and then stand by it. And then ABC crawls like worms to their king. It was sickening. Makes me sick thinking about it. Also for the law firms. Capitulated immediately. Worms. I guess people in this country are just way too in love with money. It's all about money. That's why ABC did. That's why the law firms did. It's about money.
That's why CBS might do it.
Oh, I forgot. With the editing thing, you were a CBS correspondent. I think you wanted Peabody for one of the stories you did, right?
I think my interview with Sarah Palin. I think
Oh,
it was
please.
It was a
Excuse me.
DuPont.
Excuse me. One of the great
Thank you.
moments in broadcast history. Really. Thank you. How you held your, let's just talk about that for a minute. How you held your cool and were so kind to her. You were so kind to Sarah Palin.
I don't know if kind would be
No,
the
you
word.
were
I think
kind.
I was expressionless and impartial, but my questions were pointed.
No, they were pointed. No, you were, nobody's saying you ain't pointed. I'm saying you were kind in that you didn't jump all. What? You don't remember what you can't? What? Okay, let's take this morning. Sarah, what the hell? You don't remember what you read? Do you read anything? I mean, you didn't do that.
But then all the attention would have been on me instead of her answers.
I listen. I handed you. I will salute you every morning to get up. That was that was so good.
But getting back to the CBS lawsuit, I think
Okay.
I think it's specious at best and has no merit at all. I mean,
None.
oftentimes different sound bites are chosen,
Yeah.
and I don't think one was more flattering to her in any way. I think it's just a completely cooked up thing.
Totally. And if they bend the knee, it's all about the money. They get some big deal of what? Sherry Redstone's selling something to somebody, and I don't know. It's all about, that. It's not about journalism. Not about the vice president, not about the editing style of 60 Minutes, all about
Money. What is the status of the case where the jury awarded you, $83 million?
83.3.
$83.3 million. Trump's lawyers have appealed that, correct?
And they will argue it before the Second Circuit, United States Court of Appeals, next Thursday. And Robbie Kaplan will tear them to shreds.
Then what? If they do not win the appeal, is it over?
No, then Trump will reappeal, and then he'll lose that because he doesn't have a strong case. Then they'll go to the Supreme Court may hear the $83 million. They may. I don't know. It's not a nice case. The Supreme Court does not want to be sitting there because do you know what their argument is?
What?
Here's their argument. This is what John Sauer, who's now Solicitor General, here's his argument that he made in front of the Second Circuit. We should not have been allowed to have the witness at our trial by the name of Jessica Leeds. Why should we not have had Jessica Leeds as our witness? Because when Trump attacked her on an airplane in 1980, it was not against the law to attack a woman on an airplane. That is their argument. That's their argument.
So the Supreme Court doesn't want to get involved in that.
Not going to want to do that.
You have said when you finally get that money
Ooh.
that you are going to donate it to things that Donald Trump hates.
You bet I am.
Like what?
Well, the thing we know, that you and I know, is one thing Donald Trump loves is money. So the way to make him very angry is to take his money and spend it on exactly the things he hates. And right now, I keep changing it because the world is changing so quickly. I mean, I'm not even going to give it to the same thing I was going to give it to last month. This month, I'm giving it to women reproductive rights, binding the wounds of our tattered democracy, that wasn't on my list, and shoring up voting rights. Those are the three things this week that I'm going to give the money to. Next week it's probably, to the immigrants in LA who are being dragged by the heels into, I don't know, but whatever it is, it's going to be, I don't need the $83 million. I'm perfectly happy. I live in a hovel upstate, with my 2 dogs. I'm perfectly happy. So I cannot wait to give away this money. Cannot wait. And it's all set up in a nice trust, very official.
When do you think you're going to get it?
Who knows? You got any ideas for me to give it to? I bet you do.
I do.
Yo,
we'll talk.
You're a big cancer charity.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't think that would upset Donald Trump if
Anybody
you gave it to
goes on
cancer
TV.
research, although it might upset him because of all the cuts to NIH and research universities. So
That's
that
not bad.
actually could stick in his craw a little
Let's
bit.
do that. Okay. We'll be talking.
When you watch this second Trump administration in action, knowing what he did to you personally, but also just witnessing what is happening, do you think about it every day, or do you try to compartmentalize?
Oddly enough, having this conversation with you is such a treat because we don't have to look at the news. It's more fun talking about it than looking. No, what do you do? What do you do every day when this horrible news comes rolling in?
I read it, and I want to make sure people know about it, understand it, and appreciate the consequences.
Okay, we're both on
that.
That's what we're doing.
That is what drives me.
Okay.
And I can't say that I don't get depressed and concerned myself, but I also feel invigorated as a journalist that my job is to help people understand what's happening. And it gives me a sense of purpose amidst the chaos, honestly.
Perfect. But that's exactly how I feel. If I weren't doing this, I'd be going nuts. That's exactly it.
It is such a treat to see you and talk to you, and I've always admired your work. I think people also don't recognize what a great journalist you are and your accomplishments, and I don't want them to see you as just E. Jean Carroll, the lady who sued Donald Trump not once but twice, but also as to borrow a phrase from Tom Wolfe, a woman in full.
Oh, Katie, thank you.
And
That's
I'm
so
sure
nice.
that's something that this book will help promote, don't you think?
You're going to make me cry. That was the nicest thing. Thank you.
What's next for you? Maybe looking at a man in an elevator and smiling?
Where's the closest elevator?
I'll be your wing woman.
Well, if you know anybody cute, that's what we'll do.
You're too fun not to have fun.
Thank you, Katie.